So now you've realized that a family member, a spouse, or a really close friend is suffering with histrionic personality disorder. So what do? You can't cut this person out of your life. You can't ignore them. So you have to find ways of understanding, deal with the situation positively, and at the same time, not allowing them to walk all over you. If you're in the situation, you can't miss this video. Understanding and knowing the symptoms of HPD is powerful because it allows us to understand from the perspective from which the other person is coming from. At this point, I hope that you've seen my previous video on histrionic personality disorder, and I'd like you to watch that first if you haven't before watching this video, because it'll allow you to understand the criterion of HPD and how to understand the characteristics, and it'll go through the 9 different symptoms of HPD, and that's valuable. So if you haven't seen it, please watch that video first. The link is in the description below. At this point, you realize that a family member, a close friend, or your spouse is suffering from HPD. Okay, so we can't disengage, we can't cut them out, and it requires interaction, and to some degree, it requires actually good, positive interaction, right? Because if we're dealing with a spouse that's suffering from HPD, we've got to be able to interact, and we've got to be able to understand from the perspective with which the other person's coming from, as well as a family member, a mother or father, sister or brother, grandmother, grandfather, very important, okay? As well as a really good friend. All of which that you're going to try to preserve these relationships and do the best you can to not only be understanding, compassionate, but also to not allow them to walk all over you. Okay, so let's begin. The first thing that you want to do is to practice acceptance and understanding. Okay, I think this is a given. But in any situation like this, we have to be understanding of the other person. We have to accept them for the situation and for who they are, okay? Because in order to work with somebody properly and positively, we have to allow that to be the basis of our relationship with anything. Doesn't matter if it's HPD or anything, we have to accept the situation, accept them, understand the situation, and understand them. The second thing that you want to do is you want to know the symptoms of HPD. So in that first video, I went through all the different symptoms, remember? And I explained each and every one of them. And so you want to know those symptoms because I want you to know what they are capable of, right? Kind of the modus operandi. And if you understand that, and you understand the symptoms of HPD, then you can understand why a comment was made. You can understand why there was an outburst. You can understand why they were wearing a certain provocative outfit. You can understand why they might be flirting with somebody from the opposite sex. There's all of these things that become very clear once you fully understand all the symptoms of HPD. The third thing is you do not want to ever allow them to disrespect you, okay? When we allow other people to disrespect us, we have no boundaries. We don't care about our own well-being. We don't care about ourselves. And we're not showing our own self that we respect ourselves, care about ourselves, or unconditionally love ourselves. So this is key because we don't want them to disrespect us. And so if they're trying to disrespect you, okay, start an argument to undermine you, I want you to take a step back because I don't want you to get into a yelling match. I don't want you to get into that type of match because remember, the person suffering from HPD is going to be extremely dramatic, okay? So there might be some extreme yelling, some extreme crying, animation, and if you start wrenching that up, there's going to be a bigger issue than there already is, okay? So you need to be able to be, and I don't want to use this word conveniently, but you need to be the solid, wise adult, where you need to take a step back and let the other person know that you will talk to them when they calm down. If they still haven't calmed down, the best thing to do is to just tell them that you will be back, you're going to take a break, and you'll come back in a few minutes after they've calmed down, okay? Because if you start trying to get into an argument match or a yelling match, you're not going to win, okay? And them understanding why you were angry is not going to be understood. Because remember, when they try to walk over your boundaries, and if you get into that match with them, it's no longer what the real issue is, it was how you handled it inappropriately. Okay, remember that, because rarely will the person suffering from HPD take the responsibility and say they were in the wrong or they caused it, because they don't see that their behavior is wrong. Okay, they don't see that them acting or reacting or outbursts are wrong at all. They see that as just a normal way of communication and response. The fourth thing is manipulation is key. You need to recognize it and you need to stop manipulation in its tracks, okay? We can't let them get away with any manipulation, because the next time they manipulate you and get away with it, they will do it again and again and again. You give them an inch, they'll take a mile, because they see you as weak, okay? So when you realize the symptoms of HPD, okay, and you understand from which they will act, that gives you the ground to understand when you're being manipulated. And I need you to be aware of that. When we're being manipulated to feel bad about ourselves. We're being manipulated to allow somebody to run over our boundaries. We're being manipulated into doing things that we don't want to do. Okay, all of these things, manipulation. So you have to stand up for yourself and stand up for your values. The one time that you don't, they've broken that layer, they've run all over your boundaries, and guess what? They're going to continue to do it. Next. Do not ever let them walk all over you. Okay, if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. And we have to stand up for ourselves. We are an independent individual in the situation. And remember, a lot of times we do lots of things to keep the peace. We're also codependent in nature. Okay, so we'll allow them to get away with certain things. And at this point, when you're dealing with somebody that's a family member, a spouse, or a really close friend, if they keep walking all over you, you're going to get angry. You're going to get resentful. There's a lot of things that are going to come from that aren't positive. And it's not going to allow for a good relationship. So in order to preserve the relationship, you have to stop allowing them to walk all over you and to stand up for yourself. Because when you don't and you allow them to do whatever they want to do, that actually fuels them to continue in this negative, unhealthy behavior. Next, do not fall for their threats and do not feed into their behavior, okay? Anytime anybody's threatening you, it doesn't matter who it is. When we give into that, we're giving into the wrong energy, okay? Just like when a child is acting up, when you play into that, that child is going to act up the next time because they realize that they got what they wanted that first time. Okay, so we cannot play into that negative behavior. We cannot play into that manipulative behavior, and we sure cannot play into anybody threatening us. Okay, so that's a boundary, that's a limitation, and in order to keep your identity in this relationship, you have to stand up for yourself. Number 7, you don't want to take what they say about you personally. Okay, and this is tough because sometimes people that are suffering with HPD can have a tendency of saying some very negative things, some very hurtful things. And if we're not aware of it, or we're not aware of the symptoms of HPD, and we're not aware of what's happening, we can take those to heart. Okay, we can take it extremely personally. And so remember, sometimes when they're being dramatic, being the center of attention, trying to get your attention, okay, they can say some very hurtful things, some very mean things that you need to step back from and realize that a lot of this is for the dramatic, power of it, and a lot of it is to get your attention. So don't take these negative things personally. Number 8, you want to reinforce only positive, desirable behavior. Okay? Pretty self-explanatory, but a lot of times we don't do this, okay? So when somebody's giving us bad behavior, when they're being very negative, when they're being controlling, when they're being manipulative, when they're being dramatic to get our attention, when they're saying things that are going to upset us, right, to try to feed into an argument, all of those things are non-desirable, negative behaviors, okay? On the flip side, when somebody's being positive, when they are calm, when they're being honest, when they're trying to engage in a normal conversation, okay? These things are good. And these are the things that we want to reinforce, okay? So remember that when you're dealing with someone with HPD, you need to train them as to what the good, positive behavior is. And so if you give attention to them when they're giving great behavior, positive behavior, that's awesome, okay? Just be careful to not give attention when they're acting the opposite, because you're going to fuel that negative behavior, and they're going to give more of it to you because it worked the last time. And last but not least, you want to encourage them to seek therapy and actually see a therapist, because this can be powerful. Because if they are willing to go through that process with psychotherapy and cognitive behavioral therapy, talk therapy, to analyze why they've made certain choices, or why they feel like they need to act out, or why they feel like they need to act this way or do this. Because remember, like I was saying back in the previous video about the symptoms of histrionic personality disorder, the fact is that they don't gain energy or belief or love from inside. Right? It's an outside thing. So they're looking for other people to accept them, other people to do something. And so they want to get that rise out of other people. They want to feel that they are the center of attention, because that makes them feel better. When they begin to realize that they put all this value on the outside world, and that that's the only place that they derive value, okay? And they're actually working with somebody that can show them that, that's when you can make some headway into changing the way that things are seen and the world is seen, but also internally realizing that we have to work on that internalization of finding that unconditional self-love and understanding the low self-esteem and understanding the low self-worth and why they act out. Okay, and that's why you want to try to encourage them to actually seek a therapist for HPD, not anything else. We're not looking on anything out. We're just talking about the HPD, okay? Because sometimes folks that have HPD, they don't know it, okay? They might go to seek a therapist for depression, for example, or maybe a breakup. And so it's kind of something off to the side, like another symptom of a situation, but they don't actually see for the HPD. And so that can be valuable when they're actually seen by a therapist and the therapist understands what the other person is dealing with so they can deal with the situation head on. One last caveat. Someone that actually suffers with HPD that is willing to get help is a very powerful person. Remember, we can have all kinds of situations in our life. We can be diagnosed with things in our life, but it's the person that takes it on and decides to go and actually get help is the person that has power, is the person that has inspiration, and is the person that has taken their own lives in their own hands to do what's right for them. And that is commendable. Okay, so anybody that has HPD that's actually going to a therapist and working through this is very powerful and realizes that they can make headway, okay, because they believe in the process and they believe in themselves. So anybody that's going to get help and treatment, to me, are powerful people and should be respected and admired for actually taking the moment and the time to do what's best for them. I hope this video has helped you. Please share it with your family and friends. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do. We appreciate it. Please like this video if you like the video. And by the way, any comments in the comment section, if there's anybody that you're dealing with, a family member, a spouse, or a good friend, what are some techniques that you've used to really help practice that acceptance and understanding, but also to create more of a peaceful environment? Because I think folks in this community would love to know some of this stuff, because many of us are dealing with it directly in our own households. And any advice that is really positive and successful in working with you and working for you will work for other people. So please put that out in the comment section below. I appreciate your input and perspective. And don't forget to live your true life. Are you currently in a toxic relationship and unsure what the next day will bring? Have you often wondered if there's more to life than this? Do you suffer from self-esteem issues that you've had since you were a young child? Have issues or have difficulty speaking with your family? Do you feel surrounded by self-centered people? Seems as though you're always giving and they're always taking. If you've answered yes to any of these questions, you need some answers. The 10-day challenge to live your true life
gives you the knowledge and techniques for creating boundaries in your life that help us to deal with family, as well as dealing with those narcissistic and toxic people in your life. It offers the insight into understanding and overcoming your self-esteem issues, and to begin to see for the first time your amazing value. You owe it to yourself to find the power within you.